Well, good morning. This is Tampa Home Talk. Welcome to the show. We're glad you're here. That is, in fact, a snappy new intro there.
Love the new intro.
Pat, are we on your side?
No, not at all.
Okay.
We just have a minor delay.
Where's that echo coming here?
No, it's just literally a minor delay. The way we can get rid of that is turn these first channels to nothing. And then it's still happening.
Anyway. Welcome. This is Tampa Home Talk. We are glad you're here. I was telling Leo and Adam that I had an appointment yesterday with a gal that was amazing. The house was just stunning. I mean, this was an old church, converted, moved from downtown. Stained glass windows, original wood floors, incredible. So it was fascinating, and I'm so glad that we get the opportunity to do that. So our topic for today's show is when you're trying to make an offer as attractive as possible. A lot of people will often think about waiving their home inspection. And of course, we are never, ever going to waive a home inspection, even on new construction. And the reason why we mention that is there's so many things you can find. We've talked about this, right, Leo? Even new construction.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a due diligence period, and this is Leo engineer, by the way. You have a due diligence period to actually look into your house and see what's going wrong with it, and to see if this is the right house for you, or to go back to the seller and say you need to fix certain items. If you don't do an inspection, you're basically giving up your right to do that, and then if something's wrong with the house, you're just kind of stuck with it. Yeah.
And then you could potentially be uninsurable, which would be a bigger problem.
Have you seen that before, Adam?
Where somebody getting an inspection
and now they're uninsurable.
I mean, you can always find something, but it might have a $1,000 policy. I'm sorry.
So you would ultimately find insurance, but you said it would be uninsurable. So what I'm hearing is they wouldn't have fabulous coverage, but they would have something.
We can usually find something for anything, but
what would be an idea?
What
would be an idea? Like basically if it's falling apart, there's a sinkhole or something like that. Something major
structural. I mean, if the roof's falling down, current damage,
nothing coming to mind.
Yeah. Nobody's going to insure anything that is already damaged. So that's where your problem comes.
I mean, they don't want to take on that liability. Why not?
Doesn't make good sense.
Just kidding. So some of the things that we see really, and the point of the inspection is just to avoid some major costly surprises, right? So what we tell our buyers when we go into a home inspection, before you guys even look at it, Leo, we're telling them, look, they're going to find stuff. That's their job. They are going to find stuff, and that inspection report is going to look worse than it is when you get it back. And so a lot of that I think is just preparing them for what they're going to be seeing and what they're going to be walking into. And what we tell them, all of our contracts are pretty much as is, with the right to inspect, which means essentially we're looking for major defects, you know? Big ticket items. We are looking for safety concerns. We're looking for things like that. Now, even though it's as with the right to inspect, what that means is the seller doesn't have to repair anything, but you also don't have to buy it. So it gives you the opportunity to actually get out of the contract and not move forward, not be stuck.
What's the most common thing that you see that a seller would have to fix?
We should probably think about this one together, Leo.
I mean, most common would be some small stuff like leaking under the sink drain in the kitchen or the bathroom. That's the most common.
Common stuff I see too, and we do a lot of government loans. On the exterior garage door, like there's a single door sometimes that goes from the outside. Many homes don't have gutters in Florida. When that water splashes down the concrete pad, it kind of splashes up, and it will rot the bottom of the frame.
Oh yeah, low-hanging fruit, something in front of the house.
So we'll see that. What would you say? 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10. How many do you think?
11 out of 10.
Oh, come on.
No, it's so common.
Really, 9 out of 10. So that's something you guys will see all the time. But here's the thing. That can actually get hung up on what we call a WDO inspection or a termite inspection because it's a different type of termite. It's like a fungi termite, isn't it? That can live in there.
What's a fungus? It's not a termite.
I know, but though the lenders treat it like the house.
Well,
It's a wood-destroying organism.
Yeah. So wood-destroying organism means termite or fungus or some kind of organism that destroys wood.
Right. So the point being is we see that in almost every home. So a lot of times that's going to be a cellar fix. But I already know that because I've been to a bazillion home inspections. So usually when I'm walking through, if I see that, I'm kind of alerting the seller. To repair that stuff. But we recommend that our sellers get a pre-listing inspection. And when they do the pre-listing inspection, there's a couple things you should know. For one, anything you find, you now have to disclose on your seller's disclosure statement. So if you know about it, and someone's told you about it, even if you've never seen it, if the inspector has now made you aware of that issue, you have to disclose it. Or fix it.
Yeah.
Well, it might be something that you need to fix in order to sell the home, right? Or if you know it's going to scare a buyer off. As we're moving into this shifting market, buyers are not going to be abundant. So when your buyer does come along, you need to make sure they stay in the deal. And they're not getting scared off.
The thing I see most as far as on a 4-point that I think I've seen people correct the most would be on the electrical side. Open breakers, breaker box doesn't qualify, stuff like that.
There's certain things we're looking for, right? Like all those boxes that are not insurable. We see a Sylvania, panels, and Scopian, another couple.
Challenger.
You see the Federal Pacific, the big one. I wasn't thinking about it. I knew you would rattle it right off. We know them when we see them. And I had a seller. This guy's actually selling a different house right now than the last one that we sold. But he had a Federal Pacific box, and he's like, is that really a big deal? Like, do I need to change that? I don't really want to spend the money. No, you absolutely need to do that before you put it on the market. Like, this will be a deal breaker for every buyer, unless they're cash. And even so, it's going to delay their ability to get insurance.
Now, Leo, what does that usually cost to replace?
Anywhere between $1,200 and $1,800 to just replace the panel. Sometimes if you're replacing it from like a 150 amp, you want to upgrade to a 200 amp. That's probably a safe bet in today's market with a whole bunch of electronics in every room.
Here's the thing. I have one of my past clients. I probably sold 4 or 5 homes for them, and she's getting ready to sell this home and actually move up near the Panhandle. And she said, she just told me this was this week. She said that she had a buyer that had bought their home in Tennessee when they sold it. Young couple, first home buyer. Said the house looked great and they wanted to get a home inspection. Didn't waive the home inspection, didn't get one. And literally the house burned to the ground within 8 months of it.
Oh, no.
Wow.
Yeah, so I obviously probably some electrical, right? I imagine.
Yeah, electrical, or they left the crock pot on the kitchen too long.
I don't think that was it. I think it was something.
It wasn't light, right? That's what you're saying?
No. It wasn't light. I think it was something electrical at the house. I don't think the seller would have sold something that was defective because there's not that person. But the bottom line is the buyer waived the inspection. And likely that might have been one of those faulty boxes that we're talking about. I'm trying to think what else always gets flagged in an inspection report that they have to fix. The TPR valve, a lot water.
Yeah, that's not something that's a 60-cent part.
Yeah, but it's a safety concern, right? Because the reality of it is, if that 60-cent part is not fixed, that can cause your hot water heater to shoot through your roof, right?
Yes.
I mean, isn't that
No, I've never seen a picture of that actually happening. It's just what they tell us will happen. Usually when they say, this will happen if you don't do this, there's usually some video of the thing that you're trying to prevent. I've never seen a video of a hot water heater shooting up like a rocket.
I don't think anybody has YouTube queued up, or
ready to go, shoot through the roof.
It's a pressure thing, right? How does that happen?
So basically, there's a chemical equation called PV equals nRT, where pressure and volume equals some gas constant, some other constant, and temperature. So pressure and temperature on both sides of the equation, if your temperature goes up, your pressure is also going up. So if your temperature goes up too high, your pressure increases too much, and if you don't have a way for that to leak out that extra pressure, then
how would somebody be able to visually see that in their home? Any idea?
Well, there's a YouTube video of capturing water heater exploding. That would be nice, but
there's not.
No, you're not going to see it. That's why it's a relief valve. Basically, you have to go and just make sure your water heater is set to the right temperature. Your water comes out scaldingly hot. and you have it set for like 115, you might have a problem.
So that's an item that, for example, that's a safety concern, right? Like Leo said, it's a 60-cent part. You got to pay a plumber to put it in. So nonetheless, it's not expensive, but it's a safety concern. You know, a couple other little things too that you guys would flag on an inspection report would be like the anti-tick brackets on the stove. Right, where they're not in the back, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I got everything all potted down.
The GCFI, that stuff too.
So why don't we talk about that when we come back from the break?
Yeah. We will do that. This is Tampa Home Talk. Our number is 813-377-2775.
Hi, this is Aaron Davis, owner of Hillsborough Title. Hillsborough Title is a local family-owned title agency here in Tampa Bay.
Well, good morning. Welcome back. This is Tampa Home Talk. I'm one of the three hosts here. Leo Kane from Barrel Engineering. We're here with Adam Tally Insurance, and Katrina from Tampa Home Talk.
Keller Williams. Adam's by himself at the end of the month. You guys will have to listen up and let us know how he does.
Oh, that's coming up in a couple of weeks.
I'm excited. Me and Pat are going to have a good time in studio.
Let us know if we're taking him off or invited back.
I've already got a special guest lined up.
All right, so before the break, we were talking about reasons why you should not waive your helmet inspection. And again, Leo, you and your guys are looking for major ticket items, safety defects, and Adam, you posed a great question. You're like, what kind of stuff do you see a lot that sellers have to repair? Another thing we see as well quite often is not properly installed flashing on the roof line.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Especially around the chimney. I mean, a lot of times what we'll see is on a chimney, they'll re-roof the chimney, but it's leaking in the stucco. And you can see it's obviously leaking in the stucco because you got huge cracks, maybe stucco missing. But they replace the roof flashing around, and the water's still coming in. It's like one of those things. The benefit of a home inspector is we're generalists. So when we go out there, we're looking at a whole system. When you hire a roofer for something that's happening in your chimney, they're going to say it's a chimney flashing. If you hire a painter, they're going to say it's stucco. They're not going to look at the whole system and say what it really is. That's why you need a generalist to go in there, give an evaluation of the entire house to let you know what components of the components are actually wrong.
Right. Because oftentimes you nailed the nail right on the head, Leo. You said it's a generalist. Your inspection is in general, which means oftentimes if we find something major like that, now within our inspection time, which is not long, usually about 10 days, and sometimes you guys get pretty backlog, Leo, and it's tight making that 10-day window, right? So now if we have to have a roofer come out there, now essentially that can really it can take quite a bit of time. We have to extend the inspection period or cancel it. But that's the point of doing that general inspection is who else needs to come out and have a look at the house. And there's a saying called buyer beware, right? And that's very much the state that we live in. Buyer beware. Do all your due diligence in that time frame so you can make sure you're buying what you think you're buying.
Right. Now, before we get too far down the inspection rabbit hole here, I do want to get Leo's opinion on the tankless water heaters.
I love them. I mean, instantaneous heat for where you want your hot water to be. Lower energy costs. I guess more environmentally friendly. Lower energy costs. Instantaneous heat is always great. The only problem with them is if you have a long run. Let's say you have a sprawling one-story house. You'll need to put a repeater in at some point to get that hot water in the master bathroom. So you do need some repeaters so they can get costly. But on these Seminole Heights, Kenwood, or Ybor City bungalows, they're perfect.
Awesome. Now, what's the life expectancy on those? Is it any longer than, say, a normal water heater? Or?
No, I mean, with all of these, you have different components that will break differently. I mean, with your big tank full water heater, you need to have that sacrificial rod. Reminds me to change mine.
Of course he does.
Sacrificial
so basically,
I don't know what that is.
Okay, so basically, your water heater works like a big battery.
Okay.
So you have an anode, a cathode, and then the water gets hot by the cathode to the anode. I forget which one. I'm an electrical person. I'm a generalist. So basically, one of them starts eating away. So what you do is you put this sacrificial rod, basically copper rod, into your water heater. So instead of your anode or cathode being eaten, it eats the rod.
Okay.
So if you take the rod out and you rod in, it continues to have a source of food rather than your cathode and anode, which is your piece of the water heater.
And this has been the science hour on Tampa.
Pretty much.
Not to stay on this too long, but I know we replaced our hot water heater. I really wanted to go tankless. We chose not to because the water is so hard, and I personally don't like water softeners. I don't like how they feel on my skin in the shower. So we chose not to do that. But with respect to that, we went back to regular hot water because one of the things the guy said was your water is so hard, it will basically break the system down a lot sooner. Was that the same thing you're talking about or no?
So that's a little different. So back to chemical engineering here, your hot water tank itself works as a big settling basin. So what ends up happening is when the water goes into your tank, some of that hardness, that calcium, that's what it is, actual calcium. That starts to settle at the bottom of the tank. And that's the other thing to do with your tank full water heaters is flush them once a year.
I would have no idea how to even do that. We should really
drain at the bottom. And hopefully there's a hose connected to it so it can drain out of the house. But yes, so between changing your sacrificial rod to keep it going stronger.
And how often are you changing that rod?
You're supposed to change a rod like once every 3 years.
Okay.
Most people are lucky if they change it once a lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many maintenance things
you know what it is.
And this is just the reality, right? Unless you live in Leo's house. The rest of us, these are not regular things that we are doing on a maintenance type basis. We're doing what we can see. We're doing what we know we should maintain. But there's basic things, like even caulk around the bathroom and the kitchen areas. That should be done probably a little more often than it is. That's basic. It's something that most people should know. It's probably something I'm more aware of in the space, but would I normally do that if I wasn't? No, I wouldn't.
No, actually, I'm less likely to do that stuff to my own house. We even published a book. We published a book on maintenance. We give it to people after every inspection.
I almost grabbed that for the show today and made that the topic of the hour. We might do that.
I think I have one in the back of my truck.
I have one. We're actually getting a run of books made in May. But
are they changing anything in there?
No.
Oh, just new books.
I ran out of books. We haven't had any clients. So I need to hand out
good problem to have.
I know. Especially in this changing market.
But this maintenance pretty cool. It really walks a lot of stuff with diagrams.
It shows you exactly what you do to your house. So it talks about changing the rod, talks about the cathode and the anode. During the break, I'll look up one is the actual one you're trying to save. So with the tank full water heater, you don't have that clarifying effect. So you're not getting that water hardness to settle. So you're putting hard water through your pipes. And it's just more taxing on the system.
So those couple things we've been talking about, that's an example of some minor things that would come up that Solar can fix pretty easily. But they could be major things that could cost you a lot of money down the road if it failed or whatever. And that's one of the things on our list as well, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But the biggest thing is you have the opportunity to walk away. Right, you got the opportunity to get out of the contract, walk away from the deal. And the second thing is, if you don't go in with an inspection contingency, then now you lose the right to negotiate for any repairs. So let's say you find something later. You lose the right to negotiate that because you didn't get an inspection. You didn't have the opportunity to discover that in that initial due diligence period. And then pests. We didn't talk about this a lot, but pest problems. There's many times. You don't want any foliage, right? Or trees or anything touching your house because it's an invitation for critters. And I'll let you elaborate on that more because that's your space. And you, Leo.
I know. That's Adam's space when it comes to critters.
No, but you guys are the ones that describe it a little bit more. So it could be palm trees, draping over
just low-hanging trees. So basically you have a tree canopy, which I'm not a tree expert, but you have a tree canopy and you want the canopy going in the up direction. And sometimes you get downgrowth, and that downgrowth needs to be trimmed because if that downgrowth gets close to the roof, you can get squirrels, you can get raccoons, you can get rats, you get all these critters that like the fluffy insulation that you use in bedding.
The critters aren't the insurance problem. It's the tree touching the roof that the carrier will come in and say, oh, you need to trim it back or what have you. Because they don't want anything touching and or over your roof.
Right. They don't want the critters too much. Probably should. I guess that's just deductible that kind of like eliminates what you guys do.
Well, we don't want the downgrowing over the roof because during a storm become the...
Right, but I'm talking about like the invitation for pets. So for example, if you've got like this nice little bridge for squirrels, to get in your attic, I mean, they can shoot through ductwork, right? They can shoot through insulation.
Yeah, they love that stuff because they use it for bedding. And like personally, like if you have a tree limb that's basically close to touching your roof, you might as well walk over to the tree and put an RSVP card on family scroll. Cordially inviting you to destroy my attic by May 30th, 2019.
Another thing, this is the things that you guys would find, and you can certainly tag on this and talk about it more, Leo, would be structural issues. So structural issues you might not see with the naked eye, right? So what are some examples that someone might not notice? I know I probably would pick some stuff up. What does a lay person not do? Like, I'll notice probably a floor slanting or...
Well, the major structural things are mostly, most of them start either with building compaction, so it's starting from a brand new house, or it deals with the roof. The roof's been neglected, it's leaking. And then you start to have truss problems, you start to have teething problems, and you got water moving in. So a lot of it is water related. Some of it is structural on the house, but all houses will naturally settle over time and can be maintained. We usually don't walk into many major structural issues on a house that isn't coupled with neglect.
And we don't get any water. Tampa.
Especially not last night.
It poured.
Yeah, it was a random storm. I'm like, for a dog walk, and open the door, and I'm like,
no.
It'd be a lot lighter at 6 p.m. I'm like, the dogs are going to go to the bathroom in the house, I guess.
Yeah. We got ours out in time.
We got ours out in time, too.
There
was no mile and a half walk I was forward to, so I just spent the extra 10 minutes version table.
So tagging on to what you were just talking about exactly, deferred maintenance, that can cost a ton in the future. So that's a prime example, just tagging on to your last thing, and there's other things as well.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the asthmatic curve of damage. It's another science concept. That damage over time becomes exponential. Which flies in the face of every video game that I've ever played. Damage over time is constant. So damage over time.
I'm not a video gamer, so I'm like trying to walk.
Any video gamers out there know TOT. Which we'll probably have to talk about after that.
Yeah, I don't know what TOT is.
Well, we got some
Welcome back to Tampa Home Talk. This is Adam Talley with Talley Insurance, joining Katrina Madewell of Keller Williams and Tampa Home Talk, and Leo Kane of Barrel Project Engineering.
We finally got his name right.
I know. So my insurance tip of the week, it's actually something that Leo and I came across this week, and it does happen on the commercial side of things. So if you're a business owner, you have a commercial property policy, you need to double check and make sure you have wind coverage.
They don't include that standard?
Not in Hillsborough, Pinellas, and most coastal counties. It's on the property side. We're seeing a lot of property have to go through the excess and surplus lines market. So that's like your Lloyd's of London, something like that.
Is that just for wind or the whole thing?
You can do it either way, but we're seeing better prices just doing the full property through an E&S market. So just something to look out for. And, most of your, commercial landlords, they just want you to have a general liability policy. So that's not going to cover any of your contents anyway. So,
right.
You need to think about that stuff, especially if you're in an office complex or something, and all you did was get the insurance to, satiate the request from your landlord.
Now, you said you had a question this week from somebody as well, right?
Yeah, so I got a question from one of our clients, and she bought a house last August, and she's already looking to move, right? She wanted it as a short term, and, I said, oh, well, you might want to wait an extra year so that way you're not paying taxes. So she was a little confused on the taxes on a short term, trying to move up, if you will. So can you go into that a little bit as far as when the best time to, kind of switch into a new home would be?
I mean, the capital gain is going to kick in anytime you don't keep the home for 2 years. Mm-hmm. So if she just bought the home last year in August, unless she wants to, my suggestion in that scenario right away would be to rent it for a year.
Okay.
I would tell her to rent it for a year. She can still take her homestead. They're kind of separate from each other. Mm-hmm. People think those kind of go hand in hand, but they don't.
Okay.
If you don't keep it for 2 years, you'll be hit with short-term capital gains.
Then what's the thing they say to wait a year and a day as opposed to 2 years?
A year and a day?
I thought it was a year and a day to avoid. I'm not an accountant, so I'm just going off of what I
think you're talking about like if you close on the 4th, don't close on the 4th. Like wait till the 5th. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking like if you close on the 4th of July, 2019, you don't want to do anything until the 5th of July, 2020 with the cell.
No, it's 2 years.
2 years? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's 2 years. I'll check to make sure nothing's changed in the tax code. We had major tax changes last year.
Right.
But as far as I know, it's still 2 years on the capital gain.
Well, perfect.
Okay.
So, but we'll verify that.
Now let's get back onto Leo's topic, the exponential.
Oh, the asthmatic curve of damage over time.
Yes.
So basically what happens is when damage starts to happen, it starts to get worse. And as it starts to get worse, it starts to accelerate. And by accelerate, I mean the scope of the damage and the amount of damage that's occurring. And then that damage is going to cause other damage. So it basically looks like instead of being a straight line going up to the right at a 45-degree angle, how damage over time works in a video game, it starts to curve upwards very steeply. So you end up going from 45 degrees to 60 degrees to 70 to 90 in a relatively short amount of time. And that curve represents time on the x-axis and damage or cost to repair on the y-axis. So the longer you wait, so a good example is you don't change.
I was going to say, break it down in non-engineer terms, will you please?
So let's go back to my water heater example. You don't change your sacrificial rod. The sacrificial rod.
Here we go with the rod again.
The sacrificial rod is let's say, $15 part. You don't change it. The rod gets eaten out. So now your cathode or anode, one of the two, start to get eaten out. So now you have to change the $20 part, and then very quickly after that, because it takes 3 years for the rod to go away, but then it only takes a year for your cathode or anode to go away. So now you've got a $20 part you have to replace and a $50 part you have to replace. So that's $70 in a 4-year period.
Plus labor.
But if you don't change those parts, then you're looking at replacing the whole thing.
Which is a $1,200 expense.
Right.
So, and that's when your tank starts to rust out, and because then the electricity current starts to eat the tank itself. So that's a great example of within 5 years you have to replace your whole water heater at $1,200. 4 years would be about $100 in parts. 3 years would be $20 in parts.
Yeah.
That's a great example of the asthmatic curve of damage over time.
Yes, and that's exactly what we're trying to convey here when we talk about the deferred maintenance that turn into major cost in the future. Another one we see a lot too, going back to the gutters, is when the water pools off the side of the house and there's no gutters to kind of reroute the flow of water, it will actually splash on the ground, and if there's nothing there, like any type of plants or irrigation or something to flow the water away from the house, I guess is a good way to say it. When it splashes up onto the house, that's when you'll see like paint start to fail a little sooner.
Yeah, that's a great example. You get the paint starting to fail, you get the soil starting to undermine and wash away, you start to get cracks under the windows, then the windows start to stick. So now we go from a situation where a $15 splash block to just push the water away from the house becomes a $150 caulking job or a $600 window replacement.
Or, I know you've seen this on inspections too, where the water has pooled there for so long that it actually starts to mess with the foundation.
Yes.
And the concrete slab.
Yeah, so you get past the window point, and now you're actually talking about underpinning the house. So that could be a $15,000 expense that could have been avoided with a $25 splash block.
So that's a prime example. And I know it's crazy. Like, how would you possibly know all of this stuff, right?
You can read our book.
You could read the book. And
read the book, how to maintain your house.
If you want the book, call or text us at 813-377-2775, 813-377-2775. We'll get you one of those home maintenance guides that Barrel Engineering and Inspection so generously provides. At the time of the inspection, we will give it to you.
When we get the next run of books in at the end of May.
Yep, 813-377-2775. And if you're thinking about selling, it's a really good time to connect with us. Like, what we find is a lot of times people start talking about it months or a year or more in advance. They don't just wake up and go, I think I want to sell my house today. I'm going to call Katrina.
I've done that.
There's something that happens, right? Where, like, even last night when I was talking to Maria, the lady that I met, she says, well, I said, how long have you been thinking about selling or moving? And for them, it was, mom was living with them. And now, basically, when mom went to an assisted living, the house kind of felt too big. right? They didn't really need that much space. And then they're like, wow, well, it's a lot of things to maintain as well, being aware that if you don't maintain those things, they're going to be very costly. So it makes sense to downsize if you can't maintain your home the way it should be.
Right. I got a question for you, Leo. Not to get, I don't want to stick on a water heater for too long.
Back to video game terminology.
He's back to the water heater.
Back to video game terminology.
I guess my question is, obviously when you do these little maintenance things over time, you're extending the life of this,
of course,
of this system. So how long can a water heater last if you're doing the right things?
Well, a gas water heater, I've seen them 15, 20 years old. The electrical ones, because of the sacrificial rod.
I don't even know what he's talking about. I'm totally going to have to look it up. I don't even know what it is.
Because of that rod and its replacement, I've seen those last 10 to 12 years. So it's 10 to 12 for electric, up to 20 for a gas, if they're properly maintained. That's flushed yearly. Rod changed on a every 3-year basis.
Yeah.
She's about to go in for pure
I'm totally
science.
looking for it, yeah.
And just to stick with the video game terminology, if your water tank explodes...
Is it sacrificial anode rod? Is that what we're looking for?
Yeah, sacrificial anode. There it is, anode. When the water heater explodes and takes out a piece of the wall or takes out your air handler, because they're usually next to each other, that's called an area of effect damage, which is AOE. So now I've covered both major video game damage terminology terms.
I love it. I love it. And on the insurance side,
look, Adam, they're right here. In 4 minutes, you can learn how to replace your hot water heater anode rod.
And 3 of those 4 minutes is a tutorial on how the guy, like the background of the guy telling you how to do it, because it takes like a minute.
Interesting. I love it.
It's less than a minute long.
So easy Katrina could do it?
So easy Katrina could do it.
That's going to be the new saying of this show.
Yeah. Love where you live, or it's so easy Katrina could fix it.
Something like that for sure. Oh, so to give you some solutions, going back to our original topic, if you guys are thinking about waiving the inspection because it's been competitive and you're like, maybe I should just not do that, or, oh, I don't need it, or I hate when I hear, oh, I don't want to spend the money. Like, that's the worst thing you could say, because $500 is your insurance policy to make sure you get a good home.
$500 compared to $200,000, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, this is what I always say. Like, if you're going to buy a $25,000 vehicle, how much research are you going to do? I'm going to read auto trends. I'm going to test drive it. I'm going to do all this stuff. You're about to buy a $350,000 house. Do you want to spend $500 to know what you're getting?
You're going to buy the most expensive thing you own. How's that?
Yeah, pretty much.
I wish you could test drive a house. Like, can I live in your house for a week, just see if I really want to buy it, and then...
Well, you can if it's on Airbnb.
That's a good point.
It's likely not on Airbnb.
No.
And that's a whole sticky point with sellers, right? Because attorneys, we've talked about this many times on Tampa Home Talk, how we don't like pre and post occupancies by buyer or seller, meaning they move in before they buy it or they stay after they sell it.
And we talked about that last week, didn't we?
Yeah. We did talk about that. We should probably bring one of our attorneys in to chat about that again, because there's so many layers of things people don't think in that space.
I think a power hour for us would be me talking about engineering, Adam talking about insurance, and a real estate attorney talking about eviction, and an accountant talking about capital gains. I think we should get a panel, and you can moderate a panel of pure, brilliance for an hour that no one will understand.
That's a lot of stuff to cover, though, in an hour with that many experts.
I was going for impact.
We'll do
impact.
it. We'll have
impact. I was going for burst damage, actually. That's another term.
So here's one of the thoughts that I have if you're thinking about waiving the inspection. Just for whatever, I don't waive it for the sake of saving money, but definitely maybe think about making an inspection pre-offer. And we see this a lot on auction properties. If someone wants to buy an auction property, you don't get any contingencies at all. Nothing. Mm-hmm. No inspection, no title, no appraisal.
All cash.
No lending. So you don't have to be cash, but you got to make sure that your financing is bulletproof, it's going through. Like, you can walk into any bank and get a loan no matter what on this property. That's how it should be. And with regards to inspections, again, for auctions, I can't say it enough. Do the inspection before you even think about bidding on it. Mm-hmm. And that's because if it's being auctioned off, I can guarantee you there's probably a reason.
Neglect.
Is that fair?
Yeah, auction houses always have some level of neglect.
Or major structural defects.
Well, yeah, that's still neglect.
Now, you buy some auction houses from time to time, right?
Yeah.
How much, let's say you buy this auction house, how much time does it take you to really get it livable, usually?
It depends. I mean, when I was buying them on auction, I was buying condos, and they were basically a couple of $100 in cleaning was all I needed. It's a little different than a house that's been neglected, because when you have the exterior to worry about, and all these other components. A little different when you have a second-story condo that the exterior has been maintained, the roof's been maintained. You're just basically cobwebs and a new AC.
But when we come back after the break, I'll talk about some things you should check out with regards to condos if you're buying it on an auction, other than just the cleaning and paint.
Oh, yeah, you get burned on dues really quick on those.
And there's a couple other things, too. So we'll chat about that when we come back. Our off-air number is 813-377-2775, 813-377-2775. If you want to connect with any of us or any of the guests we have on the show, we would love to hear from you. We will be back right after this break here on Tampa Home Talk. Going to be with Mr. Ray Hall, the appraiser, and we're going to talk about things you should know when an appraiser appraises your house, coming up in the next hour here on Tampa Home Talk. Welcome back. We're glad you're here.
I'm excited that we can get very technical with appraisals next.
We're going to have fun. I love tearing up appraisals. I tell you what, if you ever get a short appraisal, like if you're listening to this and, of course, if I represent you, we're going to fix it. But if I don't represent you and you're listening to the show and you got a short appraisal, just call or text us at 813-377-2775 because my next guest, Ray, the appraiser, will be able to tear up that appraisal report. And you would be surprised how many times we see appraisers adjusting the wrong way, appraisers not adjusting within USPAP guidelines, and we'll be talking about all kinds of fun stuff on the appraisal report when we come back.
I love it. But the danger is if you have an FHA appraisal, you can't get a new one for 6 months. So if that appraiser makes a mistake, they have to own it and correct their report.
They have to correct their report, and what you're talking about is if it's FHA or VA, that appraisal will be stuck or tied to that property for 6 months.
6 months. So yeah, because I know a lot
Now, you could resell the property. If you get a short FHA appraisal, you could turn around and resell it to a VA buyer. You could turn around and resell it to a conventional or cash buyer. But you won't be able to go FHA for that price because you got a short appraisal if they don't correct it.
Right. And that's why I know a lot of flippers, when they're putting their listings on the MLS, they'll say no FHA because they used an FHA to get the house to be able to flip it. They're flipping it within 6 months. And
that's not the only reason. FHA has also what they call a seasoning or flip rule. And so if they're, depending on how much that spread is, right, like how much money they're making, the underwriter will actually ask for receipts, and there's a certain period of time where they can't turn it for a profit going to FHA.
Wow.
Yeah. So what does that do to the water heater? For those that watch our shows on the YouTubes, this is going to be, the show title will be all about the water heater.
Love it.
What you need to know about your hot water heater.
All about the water heater.
And maintenance of that water heater.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of great concepts.
We have. Now, we're talking about inspections, and we have pre-listing inspections, which I think is great, especially as you mentioned, we're going into a shifting market.
Yep.
At what age of home do you think you really need to have that pre-listing inspection done?
I would think any age of home. Yes. I mean, the reason why you do your pre-listing inspection is you can disclose everything. Mm-hmm. And the biggest reason to do it is you can combat buyers that want to beat you up over a sales price after their inspection.
Yes, because you're spot on there. Mm-hmm. If you do an inspection and you disclosed it, and you don't have to, we're not saying fix everything on that inspection report. We're saying the major things that would scare a buyer off, the safety concerns, fix those things. Like you said, some of those parts are 60 cents. Get it done so it doesn't scare off a buyer. Now, if there's other things on there that you say, look, we are not going to repair these things. It's an as-is contract with the right to inspect, and we've totally seen this, where, we will even give the buyer or attach that inspection report in the MLS so the other agents can see it. Now, like we did the same thing on that one property we have listed. So it's already in there. So if you make an offer and it's as is the right to inspect, don't come back and try to renegotiate based on what you already know that we told you about the property, because we're not going to do it.
Well, and I would also think it's a powerful tool if everything is right? So you have this clean inspection. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it. You got to look, the inspection's
there have
perfect.
been times or homeowners have marked up that entire appraisal report. So we did this, we did this, we did this, we did this. Mm-hmm. And think about this too. Now, if you're under contract with a buyer and a seller, like you said, the rod, right? It's easy. You could change it so easy. Katrina could do it. If you are under contract with a buyer and another agent during that deal, they may now put in the contract, you've got to do that repair with a plumber.
Yeah.
So it could be, now they want a licensed professional to come in and do it. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't hire a licensed professional.
Well, no, for your rod, it's $15 part, 4 minutes of time. Yeah, I don't want a plumber to charge me $250.
But here's the dealio. It's your house. You can make any repairs on your house that you want. Stop making fun of me. You can make any repairs on your home that you want. You can do anything you want to your home as long as it doesn't, violate your mortgage provision, like tear it down or anything like that. But basically, within reason, you can do anything you want to your home. If there's another person involved that's an interested party that's planning on buying your home, now they're going to dictate how and where that is repaired. And if you don't want to do it, that's fine, but they might not buy your house.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the worst thing that can happen. When you have a buyer walk, it's horrible because you got to go back through the process. You can be I hate the ones that fall apart because the buyer can't get the financing because the buyer's already spent $2,000 between escrow and inspections and termite and appraisal. And then
at least
the
$2,000.
seller is tied up for at least 25 to 30 days. So they paid another mortgage payment, and then the buyer has to fold because they can't get a mortgage, and there's a clause in their contract that says if they can't get a mortgage, they get their escrow back.
Yeah, and spot on with that. That's one of the things I do not like that it is in our contract. We're seeing a lot of 30-day closes right now, and by default, it's a 30-day commitment window as well. It's a default provision on the contract that they have a contingency to get a loan within 30 days. So what that means for the seller is you're tying them up the whole time, sometimes all the way till closing, and the lender can say, sorry, can't get you a loan.
And then it falls through, and then the seller has to go back and spend another 45 days to get to the same point. It's painful. It's very painful.
Yeah, I personally think that, and our contracts are written by the Florida Association of Realtors and the Florida Bar, and I think our contract really should read more like and I'm going to probably get some hate mail from the real estate community when I say this, and that's fine. But I think they should modify that to be like 20 days, maximum. 20 days, give us a loan commitment. And from the lending world, right, which is where I'm from, and I've talked to many, many, many real estate attorneys about this to kind of dissect and dive into this because it's a really dicey topic. Technically, a loan commitment, a lender could give a commitment to lend with outstanding conditions. Right? Wow. They can say, we are planning to lend, but we need this to still finish. So it's pretty easy, but what happens is when they give that commitment to lend and there's outstanding conditions, it gives the buyer a very good, or the seller a very good insight on what still has to happen with the buyer's loan side for that deal to get done. And they should be like and that's what I mean by the some of the stuff contradicts itself because it says they have to update them along the way and let them know how the status of the loan goes. But then you kind of bump into the privacy protection, right? Where the lender doesn't want to give you too much information about the buyer. So that's where we kind of prod and poke a little bit more. And
that's why you need to work with somebody on the mortgage side like Sarah, right?
Yep.
I mean, I know as soon as her buyer picks a house, she's already looking at all the numbers. She's sending, asking me for quotes and everything else. So I know she has her numbers
There's a reason why she's been my lender for 15 years, right? I started on the mortgage side of the business, so I know all the things that can go wrong. And so you need a really good loan officer that's going to basically be able to pre-underwrite your file.
Right.
And so that's what I used to do when I was a lender. We would pre-underwrite the file, many times run it through automated underwriting, see if there's anything in there that's going to hang you up, Right. But there's so many lenders that it's like garbage in, garbage out. They're taking an application and there's no it hasn't been to underwriting. Nothing's really been verified.
Right.
So, all right. This is Tampa Home Talk. We'll be rolling into our second hour here in just a few minutes with Ray the Appraiser.
That tomorrow for Cinco de Mayo weekend. Join me, Pat George, at Vallarta's from 2 p.m. until all day and night, Saturday and Sunday.
And what you missed is you probably have to bring a chair if you want to see. But
that's true.
Pat George will be at Vallarta's. Total plug for them. We should be getting some free food there.
Total plug. He's going to be there from 2 p.m. Saturday until they close on Sunday.
We'll be back for the next hour of Tampa Home Talk in just a minute. Stick around. Remember, love where you live, or I will fix it. Have a great day, and we'll be back in less than 15. Stick around.